Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
Mike Freeman. Tonight, we were able to spend some time with a friend of yours that you haven't been in contact with for some time, Dave Specht, who served a mission in the same mission you did. And man, it was a great time tonight. I loved it. I just love being able to meet these friends of yours and feel like a connection. Like I've known them for 20 years. It's just kind of an amazing situation. But tell me, what was it like reconnecting with Dave, and what did you learn tonight?
Yeah, that word friend is an interesting thing because we have friends that we're in contact with all the time. And like in Dave and I, our friendship goes back to 1995, 1996. And I've really just been admiring his life from a distance. He's been, let in on my life through social media. And this podcast brought us together. The beautiful thing is he's grown so much as a person. He was a great guy back when we were hanging out down in Uruguay doing the mission thing, but he's now so much deeper, right? There's so much depth to him. He's a husband, he's a father, he's serving in the church as a bishop. He's chased some dreams, he's lost some dreams, he's learned some hard things, and we get all of that and some more in our time together. Loved reconnecting with Dave Specht, and that just really fills my heart with gratitude for this project, man, because it's given me some intentionality with the relationships that I have in my life, right? Like people, I'm starting to see now that, and I've known this, but there are no accidents for the people that are in our lives. And here, you didn't even know the guy, right? And through this venue, you're able to make that connection. And now you've got a lifelong friend.
Yeah, it's pretty fantastic to kind of be a part of and realize how much in common that we all have with each other, and so many of the people that we've had on the show, whether they're from the same religious background or not, we end up finding out that we're all kind of pushing down that same path and trying to get there and doing our best to enact change in ourselves and help other people get there. And Dave he's a powerful example of someone that is just not only wanting to perfect himself, but he wants to take people with him. And I love that some of the stories that he told of the things that he's doing to try to help others realize who they are.
Oh, they're eye-opening. Those experiences are eye-opening. But one of the things that our listeners will appreciate from this, and I don't know if we've had this up till now, did you catch the fact that Dave fires questions back at us?
Yeah, I loved it, man.
Usually we'll be stopping people and asking questions, and there's some of that with Dave, but a couple of times he's stopping us and saying, hey, guys, why is that so?
Yeah.
And that, he talks about inspired questions. He asked us some great questions, and it led to some wonderful discussion.
Yeah, I think that he's just a ton of experience in life, and he's a great family man, and he's got some things that we can learn about just being better people, better husbands.
Well, he has some things pressing happening right now.
Yeah.
With his dad going through some things, and just the vulnerability and allowing us in on that thing that's happening real time. I just appreciate the fact that he gave us the time he did, because he's got some stuff.
Yeah, I agree. What a fun night it was, and I'm just I'm grateful to know him now. That's kind of been the fun thing about this project is I feel like my Rolodex. Can I reference that again? My Rolodex is growing.
To me, with this one though, I mean, not only do you gain a friend, but you need to bust out that legal pad, because he really takes you to school and really is a masterful teacher at how we can be better, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm just looking at my notepad from the comments that he made,
Yeah.
and there's some things there that I'm going to be thinking about over the next couple of days. So, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, I totally agree. So on that note, Mike, let's just invite our listeners to break out their notepads and take some notes tonight. And hopefully there's something that just sticks out. You know, the goal here when we're getting together with some of these people is that there's a few nuggets that we can take away, and some nuggets that not only that we don't stash them away, but we start working on them and we start applying what we do.
Yeah. And I just want to put in a plug. This is the first time we're ever in a position to really kind of pump up the work of our guest.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy has written some fantastic books on family businesses.
Yeah.
Right. And how to keep that legacy alive. I mean, there's a lot of depth to him professionally that we really just kind of scratched the surface on. But I want to invite people, you know, if we're looking for folks out there doing great work that we can support, check out Dave Specht's Farm Whisperer, Family Business Whisperer. Those titles, we'll put the links in the show notes, but wanted to give him a plug for that.
Yeah, for sure. We appreciate him and his inspiring words. What do you say tonight? Who are you waiting to get permission from, man? I grant you permission, right? Good stuff. So look, we grant you permission tonight to enjoy the episode, to find some nuggets you can take action on. Let's all be better, right? That's the whole goal. Let's be better tomorrow than we were today. If you like the show, please check us out on Apple Podcasts. Give us a review. We'd love to hear your comments via email or social media. You guys out there that are listening are just as much a part of the show as our guests are that are on the air with us. So we appreciate you. Mike Freeman, it was a blast. Until next time, huh?
Let's do it.
All right, man. So this has happened this afternoon. We put Maybell down.
Ooh.
At 4:00 this afternoon. So that was.
Are you good?
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time coming. I mean, Gwendolyn is not good, but everybody else, I mean, it was sad. Everybody was pretty sad, you know, but circle of life, man.
Dogs, man.
Dogs. You get a dog, you love that dog, and they're fun, and then they go on you, man. So.
Freaking dogs.
Yeah.
So you got some stuff moving in you right now.
Yeah, you know.
You're thinking about your own mortality. You're thinking of circle of life. You're thinking of plan of redemption. You're wondering what happens to the soul of a dog.
That's true.
Because I've wondered that, right? When I'm full of love for my dog and I'm looking at that dog, I'm like, what's in you? Like, what is that? Like, what are you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. Something good.
Something good. It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah. So anyway, that went down. That was a little bit that was a little tough, but we circled the wagons in the Gould house, and we shed some tears together. And then we went out and got Mexican food. Was that? I think that's how it's supposed to go, isn't it? I thought I was following the script, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was actually, I'm glad you ended on a light note, because I was pretty jazzed right now, because we got we have NBA happening.
I know.
And it's pizza night in the Freeman home. Shout out to Mini Max. They got a twofer.
Ooh.
Half price pizza night on Thursdays at Mini Maxwell's. So we doubled up, and I got Clippers versus Lakers, man, and we are recording instead of watching that.
Yeah, this hardcore commitment right now.
That's how committed. That's how committed
Yeah,
we are.
that's right. Well,
I mean,
I will say this.
you've sacrificed Dodger baseball.
Yeah,
Like
Dodgers are playing
opening
right
night.
now. I did watch the sweep of the Astros. That was good.
What do you
And
think about the 8-game suspension?
it's garbage.
That's
It's
garbage.
garbage. How do you
That guy has one shot. That's all he's gonna do. He's gonna take his one shot. He's got
That's
one
it.
shot. Like that could have cost that guy his career,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, like the guy,
The
8
Astros
games.
light him up in a World Series, and he's luckily still in the league, and he's playing him 2 years later and takes one shot at him.
It's ridiculous. And let's remind ourselves that there were 0 suspensions handed out to the Astros for cheating a World Series. Right? So that's the tough part to swallow.
That's a hot take because every game is like 2.7 games, right? So this guy gets 8 games.
Well, they said it's the equivalent of 21 games.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, crazy.
That is not penalizing him. That is sending a message to the rest of the league to stop plunking Astros.
That's definitely what it is. But hey, we won, and that's okay. Life is good, man. So it was good. So what's been going?
We got my guy tonight.
I know. I'm excited, man.
So we got Dave Specht, and it's going to be a little interesting calling this guy Dave because I met him a long time ago, many moons ago. We served a mission in Uruguay together. We were in a place called Florida. White guys would call it Florida. It's a little town in Uruguay, and man, I was impressed with him immediately when I met him, and we were only together, a couple of months, but you know how missions go, man.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny because
hearts get tied together.
Yeah.
And through the wonderful technology of Facebook, we've been able to keep in touch. I've admired him. I've admired the life he's been living. He's an author of a couple of books, and I cannot wait to talk to him.
Yeah, it's interesting. The other night, we always do a pre-show phone call or Zoom meeting with our upcoming guest, and you went all ninja on me and didn't show up for the bulk of that meeting, and so I flew solo for a while with Dave, and it was a blast, man. Yeah, and it was a blast. I felt like I've known the guy for 10 years, and we just were catching up on old times. So yeah, I'm excited about it, man. He's got a lot of stuff going on in his life. He's busy with work. He's busy with family. He's busy with
everything. He's busy with everything that the rich life is about.
Yeah. And so I'm excited to kind of, to hear from him. He's got some takes and maybe a perspective that you and I maybe don't have. So this is, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun tonight. So let me ask you, Mike, what did you get those clips I sent over to you this morning?
Oh, man. Okay. I know you're on edge, right? Maybell passing.
Right.
And, I get that. Nothing tears me up like Hoosiers scenes.
Yeah, I know.
Clips from Hoosiers when they're in that locker and coach says thanks.
Yeah.
Coach says thanks for the last couple of months. Thanks for what you taught me. Love you.
Yeah, it's been special. And then
they say, and then the guy's like, let's do it for all the little guys who've never been able to be here, never been able to make it this far.
Yeah.
And then he's like, let's do it for my dad.
That's hard. Yeah, that one, when he says that, it's just like, oof. Just, man, good old shooter, man. Gotta love it. Yeah, gotta love old shooter. But I tell you, those clips, there was 3 clips I sent you, right? The one was the locker room. I sent that for 2 reasons. When the preacher gets up and gives the David and Goliath story. I love that. I love that, and then of course what the back and forth that you just described, and then ending with Coach Dale saying, "I love you guys," right? And right as before they head out to the floor. And I sent you the other clip where they measure the backboard when they walk into the big arena. And I love that. I just was thinking like perspective, like sometimes we get so caught up and we think things are too big for us or whatever it is. And I just love that he throws Ollie up on his shoulders and measures the height of the rim. It's 10 feet, same as it is back in Hickory, right? So that's a good one. And then of course,
hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
My favorite part about that scene, because I've used that before. I've used that in aspects of my life. I've used that to teach principles. I've used it professionally. I've used it personally. I love that clip. There's so many great lessons that come from that clip. But if you catch right at the end, when they're walking off, Coach turns to his assistant and says, "It's big though."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love that part too.
Like, he acknowledges, like, "Hey, I'm here, and I'm impressed with what I'm seeing."
Yeah, that is a great moment. Dave, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Specht, welcome to the richest man in town, man. How are you?
Thanks. I'm pumped to be here.
Well, we're jazzed to have you. In fact, I even rocked some swag.
Nice.
I got my richest men in town T-shirt. Yours is in the mail, brother. Here we go.
That's right.
Nice. Brilliant.
Dave,
how's the Specht family tonight?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
Everyone's good.
Yep.
Well, listen,
we got the kids cleared out of the house to have it quiet for your big time show.
That's no small feat in your world, my friend.
Feat.
That's no small feat. Hey, we were just talking about Mike and I were this morning. We were texting and we were shooting Hoosiers clips around, right? And we were just talking about a couple of clips. But I sent Mike a clip today, and it's one of my favorite clips from the movie.
Yep.
And for those of you who haven't seen Hoosiers, do yourself a favor and watch the movie Hoosiers.
Hey, for those of you that haven't seen Hoosiers, stop listening to us.
Yeah, just hit
Go
pause.
watch Hoosiers.
Yeah,
just hit pause.
Right. So there's a scene where they're in a big game, and one of the basketball players who's usually on the bench has to go in. I think because somebody's fouling out of the game, and so they're huddled up. They give their cheer. And the guy who's going in remains on his knee, and he's holding his hand. And the coach says, "Hey, Strap, God wants you on the court." Right? and they go out and he gives them a smile, and he goes on the court and ends up lighting it up. But I love that scene, man. I always every time I watch that, I'm like, man, I just love that idea. And I'm sure, I don't know if Hoosiers, when they wrote the movie, they were thinking about that. But every time I think about that, I'm like, yeah, God wants you on the court, man. Get back in the game, get focused, right? Whatever the scenario is, and let's take care of business. And
but you think about the connections there, right? You think about the connections with that. Like, life isn't about practice, right? I hate to go like Allen Iverson, like,
yeah, practice.
But you practice to play. Right. And so many times we get into these conversations where it's almost like we're theorizing life, and it's like, right. That's not what life is about. Life is about getting on the court and playing, right? Or, it's not about getting in the batter's box and watching the pitches go by you. It's about freaking swinging,
Yeah. And the other thing is, you can't just stay on your knees. You got to get up and get to it, get to life. And I think there was, I take that away from that little clip too. You need to spend some time on your knees. Absolutely. But when it's go time and it's time to make some decisions and it's time to make things happen, you need to get up and get to it.
Yeah. God wants you on the court, man.
Well, hey, and Dave, you're joining us kind of midstream. The other two clips he sent, one gets me every time, where Coach is in the locker room, and right, they're coming to the end of the journey, and he just starts pouring love into those kids. Like, thanks for the last couple months. Thanks for, because he needed them as much as they needed him. right? His life was not put together going into that job, right? I mean, he had some baggage there, but they needed each other. And man, just that communication. And then that, obviously the preacher sharing the story from the Bible with David and Goliath.
Yeah, it's so good,
I love
right,
that.
Dave? I mean,
I love that.
That movie's hard. That movie's tough to beat. I got to be honest, man.
We could spend all night trying to beat it, but I don't think you can.
No, you can't, man. You just gotta...
Yeah, I mean that movie has so much in it. It's obviously all about second chances. I mean, how many second chances are there in that movie? The coach second chances, players second chances. Dennis Hopper, the guy who's drunk. Shooter, and if they weren't trying to be clear that this movie is about second chances, they could have slapped us 3 more times in the head to figure it out. But
right, I mean, I love it. I love that whole idea, right? I mean, I mean that's important. I think that a lot of times, maybe, and you guys have probably experienced this, right? We've been there, or we know people that have been there that go down a path that maybe isn't the path they intended to or they wanted to go down, and then it's like they get to this point where I can't go back, like I'm done, right? I can't fix it. I can't move past it. I'm just stuck in this one spot. And I there's Hoosiers, right? It's a good reminder, second chances. But man, if we didn't have that in the back of our head that, hey, we can fix this somehow, we can change our circumstances, right?
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, celebrating the guy that's ready to take that second chance. I work with kids all the time, youth and adults, that are seeking a second chance, and they're humble, and they're expecting, another dose of guilt, maybe from me, or shame. And man, you just celebrate their willingness and their readiness to take that second chance. And you hand them the clipboard and say, let's get to it. Let's get after it.
God wants you on the court, man.
God wants you on the court. Let's get to it.
Yeah.
But I've been in those situations as well, Dave, that you're talking about. And it's interesting because on one side of the table, in their world's kind of fallen apart a little bit, and they've even had circumstances that have maybe even humbled them and broken them. Mm-hmm. But from where you see it, you see nothing but opportunity, right? Nothing but a fresh start, nothing but a blank page. And it's like, let's continue this story, right? Let's go live, and let's go turn some things around, like George Bailey, right? Yeah. When his mouth is bleeding, like Ebenezer Scrooge when he wakes up Christmas morning. Right. Every one of us, that can be today. That can be right. That can be, we hang up this phone. Yeah. Right? And we can go.
One of the things that
you were saying. I love, Tyler, what you were saying, where everything can be fixed.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Let's fix this. Sorry, Dave, didn't mean to cut you off. Go.
No, one of the things that's so important is, and it's a pet peeve of mine, it's labels. And I feel like when we're sitting in there, we're peeling labels off of people.
Absolutely.
Whether it's Hoosiers and the label is you're a drunk, you're a quitter, you're whatever, peeling labels off of people and saying, that's not you. That's not you. And I just think there's so few labels that we should accept from someone else, and there's so few labels that we should put on ourselves. And I think in society, man, we grab labels and we slap them on people, and it's not good, man. Labels are not good.
There's a label slapping all over, right? Sometimes we put labels on ourselves.
Yes, and those are the worst ones.
Those are the worst ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why it's important, in my opinion, to have people around you that care enough about you that'll kick you in the shorts and say, "Hey, man, this doesn't define you." Did you screw up? Absolutely. Can you fix it? Absolutely. Is this who you are? Not at all. You know what I mean?
You're better than that. I believe in you.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
Remind them who they are.
Yeah.
Remind them what their potential is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So many times that belief has to be given, right? So many times the confidence you have in yourself was probably given to you by somebody when you didn't have any, right? They believed in you, and you say, I don't know, and they hand you stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
On loan, right? But they hand it to you and you go. So, man, you can tell, Tyler, there's no way we're fitting Dave Specht into 2 hours. There's no way. Because we haven't even scratched this thing, but I need to tell you a couple of things about this guy.
Yeah, please.
And it actually lines up with what we're talking about here. Two thoughts. When I think of Dave Specht coming on the Richest Men in Town podcast, I'm elated. I have two pressing things though. The first one came from a conversation that I had on Sunday with somebody, and he explained this exchange, right? He runs into an old friend from high school, and the old friend is with his old friend had gotten married, right? So his old friend is with his wife. The friend says, hey, this is so-and-so. We went to high school together. And he starts telling his wife about this guy when he was 17. Here he is, 40-something, successful, he's got a family, and he wants that story told. And his friend is not meaning to offend him, but is telling knucklehead 17-year-old stories, right? And so now this wife is looking at this guy thinking that he's this person, and he's not. Mm-hmm. He's this totally different person, right? So that was a powerful thought. But then the guy says, man, how many times have I done that to other people? Mm-hmm. Right? Where somebody did something a year ago, 5 years ago, whatever, and I'm just talking about that story instead of allowing this person to tell who he is now. So Dave, like you and I go way back, but tonight is not about telling 19-year-old Dave Specht stories, right? It's a whole lot of life, and I cannot wait for that. And that leads me to the second point. The second point is just like that exchange in the Book of Mormon, right? Where, brother, you have battled and I have battled. And to be 20 number, 24, 25, 26 years down the road, and for you to be walking on a path of faith, and for me to be walking on a path of faith, that is cause for celebration, right? And I'm looking forward to our time together. It puts a huge smile on my face to know that you're trying, right? Nobody's perfect, but Dave Specht is trying, and he's trying to live this rich life, and that is what brings you and me together tonight. And I'm so excited, Tyler. You're gonna love this guy, man. You're gonna love him.
Thanks, Mike.
I do need to point out though, Dave, we're all coming into this with stuff, right? The Freemans are sky high. It was pizza night, and the NBA reboot is tipped off, so we're excited. Tyler and the Gould family just put a family friend put their dog down. Maybe.
Yes, I saw that online.
And so, we're all dealing. My first question to you, Dave, is how is your dad doing?
Thanks for asking. Yeah. Last Friday he had a stroke, and so I drove over on Friday to see him, and it was a tough weekend. He couldn't really talk, and we got him out of the hospital a couple days ago, and he's home resting with mom, but he's learning how to talk again, man. And what it taught me is hug your people, and don't leave things unsaid. But honestly, Mike, in the midst of that, I'm preparing for this conversation, and I'm thinking about, my dad is Superman for me, and and it caused me to think about you, and what do I have to complain about? He's been my Superman, and so somebody's always got a little rougher, and perspective is good. But thanks for asking. He's doing a little better every day.
Well, with that going on, thank you for the time you've given us tonight, man.
Maybe this is the scene in Hoosiers, right, where we're measuring the hoop, right? We're measuring the height of the rim. I mean, perspective is huge, and for us to be able to have a little perspective is a game changer for sure. So listen.
But we got to be careful, though. We got to be careful, though, Tyler, to not compare. Okay.
For sure.
Because when you tell your story and I tell my story, if we compare, then we're not empathizing, we're not helping each other.
Right.
I think it's best to show up and just love each other. So I hope that my story didn't put a damper on you, but that wasn't the purpose.
No, not at all.
I actually pulled a couple of things. You just shared some things because Tyler, in addition to the Hoosiers Love Fest we had this morning,
yeah,
you and I had another text exchange. I don't know if you guys saw this, and Dave, I don't know if you're a Kobe guy or not, but I know basketball is near and dear to you. The Philadelphia Eagles did a tribute to Kobe Bryant, and in their locker room they put a mural up of Kobe in a Lakers, Kobe in an Eagles, like a fictitious, and right in the middle, Kobe's rules to life. Kobe's 10 rules to life, right? And they're interesting, right? So that got Tyler and I talking, hey, you got rules to life? Of course we have commandments, but like, do you have a code? Do you have a manifesto of how you do what you do? Dave, you just dropped hug your people, don't leave things unsaid. Like, to me, that's kind of manifesting some of those things that are in you. Tyler, did you have a couple?
I had tell the people around you that you love them every chance you get.
Right. Sounds just like what Dave was sharing.
I had be a good follower and a great leader. Always look for the good.
We went off, right? We were cranking them out.
We were flying out, and always look for the good in people. And then this one's probably important. Never sit on a rest stop toilet. Like, that was one that we make sure we throw that bad boy in there. Right. But yeah, and then surround yourself with people that make you want to be better, Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of mine, be fiercely loyal, keep promises. When the door cracks open, kick it in.
Nice.
And don't lick your fingers when you're at the bowling alley.
That's sage advice, man. Especially given the COVID era that we live in. You don't want to be doing that, man.
Hey, in fact, I got to show you something. While I got you here, I got to show you something, man. Look.
Nice.
Walking on my scriptures. I got my old missionary name tag, man. Like we never left.
Those are hinge moments, man. That
right?
Missionary service, that set me up.
Before we got on, I was just explaining to Tyler how I met you a long time ago. You and I were called to serve a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Uruguay, and we connected in a little town called Florida. And man, I'm just telling you, like, we didn't spend a lot of time together, but everything in the mission is magnified, right?
Yeah.
Everything has long-lasting effects throughout your life, and the things that we learned together, the service that we were able to render, changed you, changed me, and nobody's the same after you do it if you do it right.
Well, let me give you one Mike Freeman story, quick one.
All right.
Everybody's
got one.
I'm looking back in my journal, and Mike's right. We didn't actually spend a lot of time together, but I was looking back in my journal, and
because you were coming in and I was heading out, right?
Yeah. I was just a whippersnapper. You were an old guy. No, the impression that Mike Freeman left on me was you were just an animal with your intensity with your scripture study. And I wrote that down in my scriptures, and I wanted to be better, and you were a fairly new convert, if I remember right, a few years, and it inspired me to want to be better, man. So Mike Freeman made an impact on young Elder Specht.
And here we are now. So where are you? Where are you right now? Like, talk to us a little bit about life.
My life.
Where you living?
You do this. Let's pause, back it up. Tell us where you got. Tell us about your family. Tell us about your mom and dad. Let's start from the beginning, man. And let's we know mission came into play.
Sure.
We know you've got a brood of kids, right?
Yep.
You know those good things, but what makes you you? Let's start from the beginning.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we're going to talk about it later, but hinge moments. I mean, when I was a little kid, my dad was alcoholic, and I'm not really sure where the marriage was going with my mom, but I was 4, and they were looking for a church. My grandpa had just died. My sister was asking them hard questions. She was, where's grandpa? Are we going to see him again? And they wanted to get on the same page. And so they started looking for churches. And someone invited my mom to a meeting and with a bunch of women, and they were doing crafts and talking about stuff. And she told the lady that she was looking for a church, and if there was anyone that could teach her about the church, she'd be much obliged. And it was like, yeah, we got some guys that we can send over. So anyways, they sent a couple of white shirted missionaries over, and smartest thing they did was they asked my dad if they could teach them, rather than just going to my mom, who was interested. And he told them, nah, he wasn't real interested, but he wasn't going to hold her back. So she started listening to the missionaries, and he goes on a hunting trip and comes back, and she tells him, I'm getting baptized next Saturday. And he's like, are you asking me? And she says, no, I want you to know I'm getting baptized on Saturday. If you want to come, I'd like to invite you. And that changed everything. My mom is a pioneer. She accepted Jesus Christ. And, it was the first time I saw my dad cry at her baptism. My sister and I, the missionaries, taught us how to sing this song, I Am a Child of God. And I saw him cry. And then he quit cold turkey drinking alcohol and was baptized just a month or so later. So, as a 5-year-old kid, man, all I wanted to do when I grew up was be a missionary. Those missionaries were my heroes. I was 5, but I felt the change in my house. I felt the change in my parents' relationship. I knew my dad was a better man for making those changes. And so that's one of my earliest memories, man. Those missionaries are my heroes. Elder Vuki and Elder Chapman. They're forever on a huge pedestal. We talk about them all the time with my kids. My parents talk about them all the time. And so that's one of the earliest memories. I grew up in Southern California. I was a basketball junkie growing up. I was pretty much either going to school, going to church, or in the backyard by myself working on my game. So I was a slow white kid with big basketball dreams.
Hoop dreams.
Yep.
So talk for a second about, you mentioned, you're noticing the changes in your mom and your dad. I mean, talk about what does that do for you? I know you're 5 at the time, but when does that start to become something that's part of you?
Man, it was pretty immediate. I mean, I knew I didn't understand it all, but I knew something really, really important happened. And I knew those guys that came to our house, that they weren't perfect. So, it gave me hope that I could maybe do that someday. And so, I was a pretty good kid. I didn't get a lot of trouble, but I really think that I stayed out of a lot of trouble because I was laser focused on becoming a missionary, man. I wanted to do that. And that didn't wane for me, even in my high school years. I mean, that was still my focus. I really wanted that because, I don't know if they taught anybody else. I don't know if they baptized anybody else, but man, they changed generations for showing up on our doorstep.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that.
Let's just think about that for a second, because you say generations in your own family, but you think about the people that you've influenced, right? You growing up, being 5, seeing that, you decide that faith's important to you. You commit to be in a position to do that for other people, right? You start looking at the impact that those 2 people had in that moment at that time. They had no idea that down the road we would be where we are.
Yeah. Right? No, they were just showing up and loving us and teaching us. And I think we just need to do more of that and put less pressure on ourselves. Just show up and love people and teach them. And then just try to be authentic and follow Jesus, and just try and skin our knees and get up and try again.
Yeah. I agree 100%. I think I think, you know, it kind of goes back to that conversation we were having earlier. I mean, I think you get that, Dave, and I see that in your eyes, and I hear that in your voice. I mean, you get that. And there's so many people that don't, you know, that don't get that. I mean, and there's a lot of reasons they don't get that, right? I mean, maybe they don't have the same exposure to the faith that you've had, or maybe they don't have the people in their life that are going to try to pick them up when they fall and skin their knees and say, hey, we can keep going. So what do we do there? You know, what do we do? How do we get people where we need to be? Because I'll be honest with you, I've talked about this with Mike. I mean, right now I'm in a good spot. You know, I feel like things are going good. We're working hard. We're focused on our faith. Things are good, but I know that that's not a given, and that's not a guarantee at all times, right? So it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to get there, and sometimes we don't have the resources to do it. So if you're talking to someone and you said and you see that person that's on their knees, what's your words to them?
You know, just trying to remind them of who they are. And again, I'm actively peeling off labels. I was working with a guy in Lincoln, Nebraska, and you know, he spent some time in prison, but he'd been out of prison for a long time, and he kept calling himself a felon. He kept putting that label on himself, and he couldn't move on from the choices that he had made and the time that he had spent in prison. And just trying to remind him, that's not who you are. You made choices. You had consequences. You're a son of God with divine potential. Everything else is a label you can rip off.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got to say it enough times and show people how you feel about them enough times that maybe they'll believe you. And then maybe they'll start following and start seeking their own witness of who they are. Man, it's powerful. I mean, all the unrest and everything that's going on right now is mostly because people don't know who they are. I mean, there's no way we would treat each other poorly like we're seeing in the media if we all knew and believed that we were children of God. I mean, we wouldn't treat ourselves poorly, and we wouldn't treat others poorly. And so for me, I'm always just trying to remind myself. So, I mean, I have to remind myself a lot too, because right. I got stuff.
Yeah, we all got stuff.
We were talking in a previous episode just about, you know, maybe that's the answer, is going to somebody who's struggling, going to somebody who's racked with things, and going to them and not focusing on what you did, but what they forgot.
Yeah.
Right. Mm. What have you forgotten along the way? Man, there's a great Renlund talk, and he quotes Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela made choices, right? And he was very open and honest about who he was. And he says, look, I'm no saint unless you define a saint as a sinner who keeps trying. Right? And we belong, you know, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's all that means, is we make mistakes and we keep trying. Otherwise, we're Latter-day quitters, because that's what, you know, Renlund goes in that quote, in that talk, and says, you know, if we quit, we're Latter-day quitters. If we judge, we're Latter-day hypocrites, right? We just keep going.
Yeah, my favorite word is strive. And what a blessing that word is. You know, am I striving? That's all he cares about. If I stop striving, I'm in trouble. You know, but I'm so grateful for that word. You know, Mike, that's all he wants. He wants us to try.
That's it. Mike made the point the other day. Mike and I were on the show just kind of reminiscing about past episodes, you know, that we've had. And Mike said, man, if we could get all these people, and we had people just like these guys that have been on the show, and they stood in front of the United Nations, right, and talked about what they talked about, the world would be a different place. And I love that thought, because I think that there are more people that are good people than we maybe get exposed to, right, through like media and everything else. You know, we get exposed to the worst of the worst. But I think too that there's a lot of people that know who they are, and they know who their eternal potential, but like Mike said, they've forgotten, And I love your point that if we just remind people of who they are, that stuff comes flooding back really quick. We had a great conversation with a couple of guys, Rajiv and Stephen Mitchell, who I was impressed with. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to those episodes.
Yeah, I feel like they're my friends. They don't know they're my friends yet, but I feel like they're my friends already. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just was impressed with their connection to the Spirit and their connection to who they were or who they are. And I feel like if there were more Dave Speichts, more Rajivs, and more Stevens in the world, man, we'd be in a good spot, But I think I believe, and I've told Mike this 100 times, I'm on this show because I need help, man. I need all the help I can get, right? And I've told people for years that, when people say, well, oh man, you've done this and that's great, you've done this, I say, it's all selfish. I'm trying to surround myself with people who will help me get where I want to be, right? And I think that's the key, is that we're willing to speak out and remind people, and we're willing to be reminded, because it's easy to forget.
But I will say this: words are easy.
Words are
like
easy.
Dave, the work you were doing with that brother in Nebraska. It's easy to say stuff, but what do you show them? Right? What do you show them in your belief in them, and then what are you modeling? Because that comes up every night in this on this podcast, right? What is your action showing to that reformed guy, and then what are you showing? Because this is the crazy thing. We as humans, we as children of God, are amazing, capable, resilient people. But the resiliency is not a default. We think that by our nature, people are just tough, and their kids will bounce back. They're tough. People go through hard things. They're resilient. People are only resilient when a pathway is shown to them, right? If you can have somebody come into their lives and show them steps to a better way, then people are resilient. But that hope is a fragile thing. And when there is no pathway shown to them, hope can get lost. We've all talked to people that are hopeless, that have lost that hope because they've been told they can't, or they've been labeled, or they've labeled themselves. They've put a lid on their progression, and they quit because they lose hope, because they lose their way, right? So part of that reminding is, hey, this is the way, right? This is who you are, and this is the way. And I think when we say those things and then we show them, take them by the hand, right? I'm going to butcher this reference, but I'm thinking of Acts, right? And I think Peter's walking up, and the guy asks for alms at the temple. And he's like, hey, I don't have anything, but in the name of Jesus Christ, right? And reaches out his hands, is like, that's what people need. People need that hand reached out in faith in Jesus Christ and in who that person is. And that's how we lift people up. That's how I was lifted up. That's how your dad, that's how your mom, that's how it works.
Yeah. So I got a crazy story to tell you about trying to lift people up. So in my job before coronavirus, I was traveling a lot, and I developed this habit of taking homeless people to dinner with me. And I didn't tell my wife about this for a long time.
Whoa. Hold on. On this show, we have the luxury of our time. You got to dig a little deeper here. Where did that come from? What does that look like? Right?
Okay. So one time I was walking down the street, and a guy asked me for money, and I was uncomfortable, and it didn't make me feel good. And so I went back to my hotel, and I thought, why did I not feel good about that? And what I realized was, you know what I didn't like? I didn't like that I was reacting. Why did he have to ask me? why didn't I get to him first? And from there, I started doing this on every trip that I would take. I guess not every trip, but on most trips I would take, I would go looking for somebody. And I would be prayerful about it because I didn't want to get myself into any real bad situations. But it changed everything for me in how I looked at people, because I was out looking for someone. And the easy thing to do is just to, buy them a meal or something. But what they weren't used to is that someone wanted to spend time with them. And tell me about your story, man. How'd you get here? Tell me about your mom. And man, there's a lot of people on the street that are hurting and that have a mom that loves them and that's worried about them. And it was just good for me. It was good for me. I had some biases, and I still have biases that I'm working through. But it was a good experiment, and I'll keep doing it. But when I told my wife about it, she was a little concerned. I was having dinner with homeless people in crazy towns. So,
well, I have a theory, and I want to throw my theory up against what maybe you've learned through that experience.
Sure.
I believe in hinge moments. We ask people about hinge moments all the time on this show. I can honestly believe, I believe that if I could go into Redding's got their fair share of folks with challenges on the streets. And I've often told my kids that I could go up to that person and ask them, you tell me the moment. You tell me the moment when this happened. And I bet you 9 out of 10 people can point to a day, right? Where maybe they needed a break. They needed to get rent in, or they had to choose between bills, or, somebody got sick, and that's when things started to get off the rails. They just got derailed.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And I think too, Mike, that there's, so I think the three of us have had some great opportunities to help people in some really different circumstances, and I remember talking to a young woman a few years ago, and she was telling me that, and she was homeless, and she was telling me, I don't have anybody in my life, that cares, she has nobody. Right. And so I said, well, let's talk about that. Let's write some names down of some people that you have had in your life. Right. And she gave me some names, and then she systematically went through and said, well, this person doesn't care about me anymore, and I've offended this person, and this person's offended me, and I said, well, who on this list were you the closest with? At one point in time, I was really close with my sister, but that bridge is so burnt, there's no way. I said, well, why don't we call your sister? And she's like, I can't do that. That's not going to work. So I said, why don't I call your sister? Can I call your sister and have a conversation with your sister? And I'm telling you, I got on the phone with that sister who just was overcome with emotion, right? Like, where is she? Right? Just freaking out. And I said, well, she's here with me, and she's under the impression that she has no one in the world that loves her, And this sister, couldn't be further from the truth. You end up buying a bus ticket, and she went home to her sister.
Because that's it, right? That's what shame does. When you make mistakes, you put that label of shame on you, and you say,
right,
I'm not lovable.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, right? In the beginning of the show, right? We're talking about, hey, when people fall down, how do they get back up? Because there's plenty of people that get to that point that say, no one loves me. There's no way back. I've crossed the point of no return, and here I am with nothing to do but trod down this path of despair and hopelessness. But the reality is, in my experience, that there is people that are chomping at the bit to show that person love, right? And to help that person get back to where they need to be. Because on some level, in some way, shape, or form, We've all been in that person's shoes, right? And if we can remember that, I think that's powerful, right? We have to remember, Dave, when you're going out to say, hey, I want to find this homeless guy to have dinner with me at the Red Robin or whatever, the reason you're able to do that is because I think you can see some of you in that person, right? Can we put ourselves in people's shoes? I think that's an important thing for us to be able to do. Otherwise, we just look through the lens of judgment and say, well, sucks to be that guy, right?
But it doesn't even mean like I have to totally relate and be in their shoes. We have to humanize the issue. Right. That's a son, that's a daughter.
Yeah, that's it for me, Mike. That's it for me. I mean, how worried is this guy's mother? Man, if that's not enough for me to do something, I mean, do it for his mother.
Yeah, I mean, here's the driver, right? What if that was my daughter?
Yeah.
What if that was my daughter? Who's going to be talking to my daughter? And who's going to pick up the phone when my daughter says, I can't go back to my dad because I burnt that bridge? Who's going to pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, you know what? I'm here with your daughter and she needs some help. She's missing you. I mean, that's a powerful deal, man.
Well, and it's crazy because that's the only thing I would be praying for.
Yeah.
Right. I would be praying that she makes a contact with somebody that can reach out to me.
Yeah.
Right. And it's really by the grace of God that it's not my daughter.
Right.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Because it could easily be.
Oh, totally. I tell my wife all the time, I'm like,
a couple of different choices, a couple of different things, right?
We're a couple of choices away from being in that same spot.
And I tell people, when I was called to serve as bishop, I took a picture of myself before I joined the church, and I put it in the middle drawer on my desk. And I would pull it out from time to time and lay it on my desk and tell my counselors, I'm 5 choices away from that dude.
For sure. Yeah.
5 conversations, 5 contacts away from that guy. And everything that my home and my family is built on is a fruit of those 5 choices. Let's go help people make that kind of choice today.
And the hope is, right, that Dave, as a dad of 6, right, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 6.
Right. As a dad of 6, the hope is, and I'm a father of 4. Mike's got 2 amazing kids that make my kids laugh like crazy all the time. I love them to death. But as fathers,
I'm behind, man. I got to catch up.
I don't know if Kelly's going to be up for the task, my friend.
Yeah, you better clear that one.
Yeah, exactly. But the hope is that our relationships with our kids are at a point where if they do go off the rails, they feel like I can call my dad, I can call Dave, right? And he's going to be nothing but love and bring me back. So
that's the question. That's the question, Tyler. What evidence have we given to our kids that is what the experience will be for them?
Absolutely. So here's my question for you, Dave.
That's a burning question, brother.
You've got a daughter who's about ready to leave the house, right? Am I right about this? She's pretty close.
Yeah. She's ready. She's ready. She was ready a while ago to leave the house.
That's the other thing.
Ready to go to school.
That's the other thing us dads do, right?
He was 5.
Yeah. True. But how do you navigate that, Dave? What are you doing? Because right now it's go time. Whatever has happened in your relationship with your daughter, and you've cemented whatever's coming, right? You've put those things in place. So what does that look like for you? How are you fostering that relationship with your kids so they feel like, hey, if I fall, my dad is going to be the first one at my side to pick me up and get me brushed off and back on the road? Well,
I mean, I'll just share that there's been a number of experiences with my own kids that, I can be tough on them with, getting after them, and it's pretty easy to, look for things that they're doing wrong and to pick at them. But I had a couple of moments where, they've come to me with something really tough, and by the grace of God, I didn't react that way at that time, that one. And it changed everything it changed everything. And it felt like, you know what? I'm not against you. I'm not mad at you. I'm sad with you. I'm disappointed. I'm really hurting with you. How can I help you? And that's happened with, a number of my kids already. And I'm so glad we had those experiences while they're at my house, because it's going to be harder for them to pick up a phone if they haven't had that experience and they don't know how mom and dad are going to react.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't go looking for those experiences. You don't, but maybe Mike does. He wishes his kids hard things, and so I'm trying to adopt that. What is it? I wish you hard things. Yeah.
Well, I love that too, because I think that's the hard thing, right? Because it's funny, kids sometimes I've got some older kids. We all do right now. Our kids are all getting up there, and I want them to know that I've been down and out. I've felt the pain that they've felt, right? Like that's not a unique experience to you. And I think that's the hard thing, right? When someone goes down a path and they say, well, I can't turn around and fix what I've done. But if they had someone at their side that said, hey, I've been where you've been, or I've seen where you've been, I've experienced some of what you've been. And somebody at that time when I was there put their arm around me and said, hey, this is not the end of the world, right?
Yeah.
Here we go. God needs you on the court. Let's get going.
Right? So here's my question. Here's my question for you guys.
Go ahead,
Mike.
That's why the hard thing is so important, right?
Yeah.
Because, so Dave, you've played ball. You ever learn anything from winning?
Nah.
Because winning,
I don't know. There's more lessons in losing, that's for sure. I guess
there are more lessons in losing, and so when I want my kids to know those things that are essential, like by essential I mean you're taking them with you. When they put me in a box, what am I taking with me? Those essential things that I know to be true. And I only learned those essential things through experiences that were difficult, right? Yeah, there have been mountaintops, there have been vistas, right? There's been amazing moments, but I know the things I know about this life because you got to do the work, right? You got to get on your knees. You got to exercise the faith. You got to believe in light when there is no light.
So here's the question. Why don't we let our kids know when we're repenting? I mean, if I had to ask my kids, how many times has your dad, repented of something? I have no idea what they would say. Like, that's a problem.
Well, you know why?
They need to know I'm repenting.
I know
regularly.
You know why that is? We need to change the culture around repentance.
Yeah.
We're doing work and we're making progress, but that is a gift.
That is celebration.
That is something we say with a smile, and it's still like this thing that, oh, I got to do that thing.
I remember talking to people, and just it's just heart-wrenching. It's just like the pain and the anguish, and I would tell them, like, I appreciate the tears, but we should be standing on this table right now, partying, because here we are at the starting line, right? Mm-hmm. We're getting ready to go. And this is in and of itself, you acknowledging, hey, I got to make some changes, is celebration. And I know I talk to my kids about this all the time, about the importance of change, and not only the importance of change, but the importance of the willingness to change, right? I mean, that should permeate our lives in everything that we do. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better son. I want to be a better brother. I want to be a better friend. And I'm not at the mountaintop on any one of those categories. And so it's a constant change and adjustment. And I think that with our own kids, for me, being able to go and sit down and say, hey, listen, your dad screwed up. I reacted in ways I shouldn't have reacted. I said some things I shouldn't have said. And my commitment to you is to change and be better, right? And I've told my kids before, hold me accountable, right?
Mm-hmm.
You tell me. I hold you accountable, you hold me accountable. I think that's an important lesson to learn. I feel like I told Mike the other night, we had an end of a podcast. I said, I'm going to be calling you, bro, on all these things you committed to, right? I'm holding you accountable, man. And I want you to hold me accountable. I think at the end of the day, a challenge without accountability is what? I mean, what are we getting? What are we getting from it, right?
Yeah, you know, the next time one of my kids comes to me dealing with something, I'm just going to send him to Dave, because I'm going to tell him, just go to Dave, because he won't overreact and he'll love you.
Yeah, my kids know, go to dad, then come back 10 minutes later after he's cooled off, and we'll start a good conversation.
He's going to be in the car playing some Rancid pretty loud, and then he'll come back around.
Amen. I'm going to drive around the block a few times. I'll be back.
Well, hey, Dave, we kind of got into your life a little bit there, but as you look back on that 20-year-old kid, and that's probably about when we met, right?
Yeah.
As you think about the life that you thought you were going to be living at 20 and where you are today, what's different?
Dreams come true, man. I have it all. I have a wife that's loyal to me. I got kids that love me. I live in a community full of people that are great. You know, I got brothers and sisters that love me and care about me. And I've chased down a lot of dreams. And when I was a missionary, I had some unmet dreams still, and I wanted to come home and play basketball. I wanted to play college basketball. And that was a big deal for me. And I felt like if I could give 2 years to God, he might open a door for me. You know, slow white kid that just loved basketball. But what I learned was, what is important to me matters to God, which sounds weird. But if something's really that important to us, God can make it. He can make it happen. And for me, I'll just tell you a basketball story. And one of my things that I think is important are these two words: walk on. And as I came home, I tried out for the basketball team at BYU, and I didn't make it. But one of the coaches said, "Look, if you want to play, you might be able to go play Division II basketball." He made a call for me, and I went and worked out for the coach, and he invited me to walk on.
Hold on.
And for those of you that don't know what,
hold on. I got to stop you there really quick.
Yeah.
How did it feel when you didn't make it?
I was crushed. I was crushed for a minute. And then I was on. And then I was on to the next one.
Okay, good.
So,
walk on.
Yeah. So he said, well, you can come walk on at BYU Hawaii, and you'll be an invited walk on, which basically means I know you're going to be here to try out. But that's basically all that it means. For those of you guys that don't know what walk-ons are, they're people that try out for teams with no scholarship. And honestly, if you don't show up, nobody cares. But for me, it was about fulfilling a dream. It was about chasing down a dream. So I walked on at BYU Hawaii, made the team. And it's made the difference in everything in my life. Now, was college basketball the dreamy thing that I had made it out to be in my mind? No, it wasn't. But it was about pursuing dreams, running it down when other people didn't care, didn't think it was important. And I've taken that into so many different places in my life. And I look at friends who have walked on from hard things. I think of one of my good friends, a lady that I know, she had 5 kids, got divorced, and chose to walk on, chose to be faithful, chose to keep her covenants, chose to go to church. And man, I honor people that are willing to keep moving forward. I have another friend, their young kid got run over and was killed.
Oh, geez.
You know, how do parents move on? Same age as my little boy, Jet. He was 4 years old. You know, how do they walk on? How do they move on? Faith, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. And man, it's about pursuing things that you really believe in, and things that, and so there was a dumb little basketball thing, walk on, but it's permeated a lot of different parts of my life.
So you ended up playing some college basketball in BYU, Hawaii.
Yeah. I picked a lot more splinters than I did hit 3-pointers, but
but you lived the dream.
I lived the dream. I was married. I had just gotten married. We moved to Hawaii for me to pursue that dream. My wife finished her student teaching. She worked in the housing office so we could afford beans and rice. And you know, and ultimately I didn't get offered a full scholarship. And so we walked on. We transferred to BYU, Idaho. And I thought, you know, my dreams were kind of shattered. I thought, you know what, this wasn't how I was supposed to go. I was supposed to walk on and then get a scholarship and then, you know, live happily ever after, the dream. But we walked on. We were pregnant with our first child. I wasn't going to go into debt to chase this boyhood dream of basketball. So we walked on, went to BYU, Idaho, and if we hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have developed a personal relationship with Elder David A. Bednar. And, you know, he's someone I was able to get close to at BYU, Idaho, had a class with him. He was kind of personal mentor to me in a lot of things. And looking back, I would have traded basketball in a minute if I'd have known I had that opportunity, but I didn't. But we walked on and you know, went and tried to grow up and take care of my family, and God just kept opening doors.
How did you and your wife meet?
You want her story or mine?
We'll get hers later.
So we were going to BYU Provo right after my mission, and we were in the same ward. And my buddy and I, Cameron Ang, I don't know if you, Elder, did you meet Cameron Ang? He served in Uruguay. Anyways, he knew how to play the guitar. And so he and I used to goof around and go singing. And I targeted her apartment. I'll just say that. And we went and serenaded her, and the rest is history.
So you're telling me you've got golden pipes? Is that what you're?
No, I don't. But I don't. I'm just not embarrassed, I guess.
There you go.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that, man.
You like how this guy drops that he just has a personal relationship with an apostle of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
Yeah, man. That's
tell us that story. How do you meet up with and develop a relationship with David A. Bednar?
So I heard he was teaching a class. He teaches one class. I think he was going to teach one class a year, 7 a.m. So no one wanted to sign up for it because it was too early in the morning. In the winter, I think he did that on purpose, honestly. 7 a.m. in the winter in Rexburg, Idaho. Like, you better want to be there, because if you don't, you ain't signing up for that class.
Yeah.
So there was like 23 kids in there. And he had individual interviews with us at the midterm. And he took an interest in me because I was interested in the profession that he was in, organizational behavior. And, you know, ultimately I got interested in his concept of inspired questions and trying to learn how to ask better questions as a part of my scripture study, as a part of being a man. And just, anyways, there's another one, inspired questions. I mean, it continues with me I'm trying to learn how to ask better questions all the time. And that came from my time spent with him.
I love that. So let me ask you this, Dave.
Yeah.
We talk about, you know, people that have had great influences in our life. You know, you talked about your dad being Superman. You know, you talked about your relationship with Elder Bednar. I mean, who else would you put up on your Mount Rushmore? And why?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's every man on this podcast, but you know, you talk about your mother. I mean, I have to talk about my mother.
Yeah.
I mean, she
it's kind of an unwritten rule.
Yeah. I mean, she chose Jesus when she wasn't sure her husband was ready. And she was making a commitment, come with me or not, I'm going. And she is the most unselfish, just service-oriented person, unconditional love. I mean, I knew there was nothing I could do that would make her love me less. And I just, as a boy, as a young man, that was my rock. You know, I knew she would have my back.
Yeah.
And she was my biggest fan too. She told me I could do anything. My dad did too. You know, you want it bad enough, go get it. We'll help you. We'll help you however we can, but go get it. So
it's funny. I think that through the show, you know, you said, well, I don't know if anyone else had talked about this, and maybe you're being facetious because you heard some of it, but I think to a person, everybody has had that conversation about their mom. You know, it's funny. You say, well, my mom said, you know, whether you're coming or not, I'm going down this path. And, you know, I would put my mom's in the same boat, right? Whether you're coming or not, although my dad chose to not come along on the walk in faith, you know, but what a powerful example, right? That to have a mother that loves you, that is willing to show faith, and more than anything, just like you said, unconditional love. I love that answer. And I think that Mike would probably echo those sentiments about his own mom being up on.
Yeah, you say you got a Superman. I've got a Superwoman. You know, here I am, 45 years old, looking back, and I didn't lack a thing. My mom was baseball coach. You know, den mom. Like she was it. And man, she's still that way. She's just a fireball, you know. And I remember I was in elementary school, and some local grocery store came up with the great idea: kids turn in receipts from that grocery store, they'll get extra credit. Well, my mom worked at a competitor's grocery store. So I told my mom about this program. We had to go shop at this other store, and she's like, nope, we're not going to do that. Next morning, she goes hightailing it into the principal's office. And like in 2 days, then an announcement comes over the speaker. It's like, and now we will be accepting receipts from any grocery store. You know, she's just a fireball. Let me ask you this, because everybody that sings praises to their moms, we usually end up asking this question, Dave: how do you honor her? How do you honor your mother and your father these days?
You know, just with my choices and with the kids I'm trying to raise. I mean, what am I doing with their last name? I mean, I think about it a lot. What does it mean to be a Specht? You know, are my choices today bringing honor to my parents? You know, and you know, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. But I think, you know, just knowing who they are makes me want to be better and do better. So yeah, just trying. I think by striving, I honor my parents.
Yeah,
honestly. I think that's all they want.
I think that powerful question you just asked sounded like a rather inspired question. Right? What am I doing with that last name? Mm-hmm. And the great thing about where I'm at is my kids, we can only go up, right? I'm a junior, but the bar was low for seniors. So we can only go up from there. So I'm excited about that. Hey, let me ask you this. What are your kids teaching you these days?
What are my kids teaching me? You know, they just finished cherry harvest, and they work the night shift, my 3 oldest. And the youngest of those 3 was a bin cleaner. And what that means is they shake these cherry trees so the cherries fall off. And the bin cleaner gets anything that falls out of the tree that's not a cherry, that's not supposed to go in the bin. They have to fish it out, whether it's sticks, leaves, mice, birds, snakes. And so you know what, they're teaching me they can do hard things, and it's a really good reminder. And I am so glad that they're learning how to do hard things, and it's reminding me, hey, you can do hard things. And it's making me question, am I taking the easy way on some things? And in what ways do I need to lean into some hard stuff?
Well, let me ask you this, Dave. What's I think that Mike has said Mike's gone as far as saying he's wishing hard things on his kids, right? And and I'm not to that level yet, but I do want them to experience some hard things.
Hey, check the record though. Check the record. We're not asking for train wrecks.
Yeah, no train wrecks though.
No,
right? Say that.
We're not asking for even collateral. We don't want property damage.
So what's the hope that what do you want your kids to take away from these hard things that they're doing?
I want them to question their limitations of the capacity that they have. I know the youngest of those three wasn't so sure he could do it, and being up all night and trying to sleep in the day, and I want them to push the limits of what they think they can do, because ultimately God can do a lot with us. And that's the main thing. I want them to believe in themselves. But if they can have that belief in themselves with the context that, God's got a plan for you, and he can do a lot more with you than you can, and you have a lot of capacity. So, how do we tap into that? That's what I really want them, to learn is to give themselves to God, and to take their hard things to God, and to not rely on themselves, but to give a good effort.
Yeah.
Give a good effort every day, and then they can be happy.
Yeah. I've always thought that, I tell my kids all the time, this isn't a capacity issue. This is a vision issue, right? What do you see yourself capable of doing? Because we have, Mike and I have talked about this a lot. I just believe we have unlimited capacity. We can do so much, but sometimes we limit ourselves by our own vision of or lack of vision of what we think we can do, or what we think we're capable of, or, we sell ourselves short all the time. And I think for me, I agree with you 100% with my own children. I want them to do those hard things and at the end of the day, hopefully through that process, have their vision increased, where they can say, oh my gosh, you know what? I can do this. Like, I've told the story to Mike. There was a young man in one of my wards, and he was one of the leaders for the older boys, the 16-year-old boys. Right. And I dumped so much stuff on that kid all the time, just put stuff on him, had him assignment after assignment after assignment. And one time he was complaining to me about it, and just, oh man, you're always asking me all this stuff. And I told him, here's the thing. One day you're going to decide to go on a mission, and your mission president's going to come to you and say, hey, I need you to be a leader out here in this mission. Can you do that? And your answer is going to be, heck yeah, I can do that, because I've been with Gould for 2 years. And
Bring it.
Right?
Bring it. Yeah.
I got this wired, right? But I think that's what I want for my kids, is for them to experience those things. And then when they reach another level where someone says, hey, can you do this? I don't think anyone can do this. I want my kids to say, well, yeah, I talked to Mike Freeman and Dave Specht, and they told me I can do it, and I'm there, right? And so I think those hard things. So for your kids, we see that. But you just said, I'm wondering if I'm taking the easy road on some hard things. What are some things that you want to lean into that you're feeling like you're not getting right now?
Well, I'll think back to my mission, and for a time I was getting up at 5 o'clock so that I could have some extra time to do my language study and to memorize something. I need to bring that back.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on that, you know, I can't get myself to get my early mornings back. And I'm an early-ish morning guy anyways, but I was making sacrifices at that time to be able to make progress that other people weren't interested in making. And God helped me, and God taught me things. And, you know, I don't ever wish for that sleep. Like,
yeah.
So that's one thing. Early mornings, take my mornings back and spend more time studying.
I don't want to inflate your ego here, but like we're not talking to a slacker here, Tyler. Like, you know, a lot of us are afraid to do things that you have tackled and accomplished, right? Like, how many people are walking around thinking I'm going to write a book someday? And I'm talking to Dave Specht, who's published author of a couple books. So talk to me about where that work came from, right? How did you do that? Like, that to me is a monumental task, and you have not only accomplished it, but done very successful with 2 published titles, right?
Well, I mean, who do you need permission from? That's the question. Like, we're sitting around waiting for permission to do things. Mike Freeman, I give you permission to seek that ambitious goal. Like, do we have to wait for a publisher? Do we have to wait for someone to dub us? I mean, for me, like an author, I just wanted to do it. And I had a great co-author, beautiful co-author, my wife, and she's a great writer. And so I am not taking 100% credit on this one.
Well, hey, tell us about it. Tell us about the books. Tell us about the work. Okay.
So the first one, we were living in Nebraska, and I was doing a lot of work so I work with multi-generational family businesses to try to preserve their family relationships and perpetuate their businesses. And in Nebraska, you're surrounded by farm families. And so I wrote a book on, you know, farm succession and how to keep these families from killing each other when they're trying to pass these farms from one generation to the next. So that one's called The Farm Whisperer. And then, you know, I did a lot of work outside of agriculture with just other businesses. And so the second one is really close to that, but it's called The Family Business Whisperer. And yeah, again, I mean, my passion is for families to be able to be resilient and not break in these transitions where selfishness and lack of communication and other things can come up and break a family unit. And so that's been my career passion for a long time. Had my own consulting business for 8 years, and then joined Wells Fargo Private Bank about 4 years ago to help them build a family dynamics program.
I love, Dave, your comment about who do you need permission from? I mean, let's just think about this for a second. I love that comment, because I think if we're talking about, you know, I feel like we've sort of circled around and touched on this topic of change a lot tonight, and we've talked about, you know, how do we get where we want to go? You know, how do we accomplish hard things? How do we, you know, achieve our business goals, right? But how do we get our kids where we want them to be? And how do we tackle the topic of repentance and make that something that's meaningful? I mean, I love that idea of who do you need permission from? You know, if you're looking for permission, I'll give it to you right now.
Granted. Yeah. It's done. Granted. Yeah.
I think.
But hold on, can we apply that to the other conversation though too? Right, Tyler? I think I shared this talk with you from Ezra Taft Benson, Worthy Fathers, Worthy Sons.
Yeah.
And he talks about how as dads, scriptures are very clear that we need to be leading out in our conversion, right? And we need to be seeking those opportunities. And if you apply that same question, it's almost like we as dads are waiting for the kid to come up to us and say, hey, can you give me a blessing? Or you're waiting for them to come up and say, hey, can you tell me about how you came to know these things to be true? That's not life.
Yeah.
Life doesn't do that. Life gives you a situation where it's like, oh my goodness, let me tell you what's coming to my mind right now. Because what's coming to my mind, what is coming to my mind right now is a principle. It's the principle of truth. And we're going to take this experience that we're having together and we're going to learn it together. Right? Because no permission ever comes for us to be a righteous parent. You don't get it. You don't get a green light. That's not the world we live in, right? If anything, it's contrary to that. If anything, there's a pressure to say, don't worry about family prayers tonight. Slough that off. Family scripture study, you can do it tomorrow night, right? There's something good on the TV. there's this other pressure. There's this other resistance. And so we need to be agents unto ourselves and not sit around and wait for somebody to give us permission to live a dang good life.
So are you saying that we just need to grant ourselves permission? I mean, I agree with that notion 100%, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Permission granted.
Permission granted. That's the, you just named our episode for tonight, Dave. But I'm serious. I think that it's interesting because I do think that there, and again, I'll speak from my own experience, but there have been times where, for whatever reason, I've felt like I've needed someone's permission to change or to move forward. It's almost like, the human nature is almost like we want to have that validation, right? Someone say, hey, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and doggone it, people like you. And so let's get out and do something about it. But the reality is, I tell my kids this all the time, like we will do scripture study as a family. We will pray as a family. We will do all these things. But I tell my kids, you want to know what I'm more concerned about? What do you choose to do when you're in your room with the door closed? Do you choose to open your scriptures and read them? Do you choose to pray without me there, reminding you? Right? Because that's where faith becomes this action word, where it's just, and it starts to develop into this power where we become empowered to just do things, right? Permission granted. Once you, and I've been blessed with children to date who have great faith, right? Who have had those experiences and shared those experiences with me that they've had on their own time. And I look at that and I see the decisions that they've made as almost adults here, right? And it's to me, I'm just in awe. I'm in awe because they didn't need my permission. They had an experience. Permission was granted. They just did it, and now they're pushing forward with this momentum that they've created themselves. I took my daughter surfing the other day, my youngest, right? I'm out in the water, and my job was to stand behind her as a wave came and push her into the wave so that she could catch the wave and go. And it was a great time. She was loving it. And then eventually her grandfather came out in the water and tagged me out. You're out. I'm going to take over. And he said, now you got to catch the wave, right? I'm going to stand over here and watch you paddle into it and get going. Mm-hmm. And that changed. After that, she caught a few waves, and it was like she wasn't getting out of the water. I wanted to go home. I was hungry. I'm like, dude, are we done with this yet? But she was out there doing it because that momentum that was created from her own, making her own decisions and catching the vision herself, right?
Yeah. So one thing, Tyler, that I'm working on is I need my kids to catch me doing these things on my own. I need my kids to catch me on my knees by myself talking to God in my room. I need my kids to wake up in the morning and see me on the couch, or to see me at the table getting into scripture study myself, not preaching to them that these are important things to do by themselves. Because ultimately, if I'm showing them, then one day they may say, I wonder why is Dad doing all this? Why was that so important to him? Absolutely. So,
which will be an inspired question, right?
Yeah.
When they come to that crossroads and they say, why was this so important to my dad? That's an open door.
Yeah.
To quote Stephen Mitchell, that's an open door.
Yeah. And the hope is that that, right, they're seeing that now, Dave. I remember telling my wife when I served as a bishop, and I would tell her, I bear my testimony so many times to people, and I don't do it enough in the walls of my own home.
So true, man.
Right? Spend so much time bearing down and really, I'd walk out of a meeting and I'd just be riding high, feeling like, man, that was powerful. And then I'd immediately have that thought, like, I need to do this in the walls of my own home.
But there's something
empowered by that.
Yeah, there's something there about that, though. There's a blind spot, right? I remember one time, because I would go a step further, not just testimony, all that talk about love, all that talk about taking homeless folks to dinner, right? For whatever reason, in my own personal world, I'm sometimes driving to go bless the life of a stranger in a hospital, and I haven't said what I'm going to say to that stranger to my kids that day.
Yeah. So
what is that, right?
Let's break.
Yeah, why do my kids get the worst Dave Specht?
Absolutely, right. So let's break this down. The three of us are here. We're enjoying our time together, but let's figure this out. What do we have to do to shift that?
Yeah, check this out. One day I'm going to a meeting, right? I've got a brother that lives half an hour away, and his wife was stricken with a mysterious illness. I'm driving to a meeting, and I haven't checked in with him. I haven't done anything, and I'm getting rebuked on my way to the meeting. I get to the parking lot. I text the guys I'm going to be meeting with saying, meeting canceled. And I went shirt and tie, suit and tie, down to my brother's house, not a member of the church, knocked on the door and said, how you guys doing? Right? But I had to be like slapped upside the head, and that did not come naturally to me. And that, again, I will drive 20 miles to talk about strangers when I got loved ones. So, like, let's figure out that blind spot, because the real casualty here, guys, is time flows like a river, right?
726, right?
and all of a sudden you're in a spot where that cement's hard, and you're trying to come in and pour into it, and the kid's like, yeah, I needed that a long time ago. And that's the nightmare.
Yeah. So so Dave, solve that problem for Mike and I real quick, would you?
Well, I would say, number one, we are being a little hard on ourselves.
Yeah, right? You're right.
Little hard, because I think Dave's favorite word, strive, is important. And actually, Dave said my favorite word right now is forward, right? Forward. Better tomorrow than I was yesterday, right? Like, but I do think that there needs to be something to that. I guess my question to you guys would be, what are we afraid of? Is the reason why we don't do something, is there a fear? Is it a vulnerability, like a fear of being vulnerable? I don't know.
Well, I have two things that hold me back from doing good things. I call them my 2 Ds, and I'm always looking into these things. Am I discouraged or am I distracted? And if I'm discouraged, I'm not doing all the things I should do. If I'm distracted, I'm for sure not doing all the things I can do. And so if I can check in with myself and see how am I doing, because discouragement is not coming from God. He's not saying you should be discouraged. And distraction is not coming from God either. And I think we choose a lot of good things when great things are flying by us. And I think those things are opportunities with our kids.
Yeah, it's that.
I would add a third D. I would add a third D to that, because I've had those 2 Ds, and the third one would be delay.
Delay's a bad one too.
Right? Like I can talk to them. I can talk to them later. I can do that thing later.
Well, this
right? And maybe that proximity of, like, they're in my life and I can do it anytime. And the ironic thing is because of that, it never happens.
I think this is the Oaks talk, good, better, best, right? I mean, this is kind of what we're looking at. I think that because there's a lot of good things that you can do, but what's the best thing that you can do? I don't know, man. I think it's tough, right? We're trying to figure it out. We've had some good examples in our lives, all of us. Dave, you talked about your parents tonight and some of your other examples, and Mike, and I've heard you talk about the examples in your life, and I think that the challenge that I'm always thinking about is I want to do better, right? I want to push the ball forward and not be going backward, and I want to do better than what my parents did, even though they did great and they did the best they could do. I want to do better. But that thought has to be at the forefront of our minds. If that's not something that we're thinking about on a regular basis, then it's easy to become complacent. It's easy to think all is well in Zion, right? I mean, that's easy to get there and not be pushing ahead saying, hey, things are good, but how could things be better? I mean, I don't think that thought a lot, Mike, and I should think that more often.
Well, and Tyler, I think of the exchange we had recently when we were reminiscing on the lessons learned from previous episodes. The bottom line is we're not living the gospel to the fullest if those nearest and dearest to us aren't seeing that striving. Like Dave's brought up a couple of times tonight. Do my kids see repentance in my life?
Yeah.
Do my kids see prayer in my life? Do my kids see and understand that dad is striving to be better, right? Like the title for the last episode was almost like, is dad different?
Yeah.
Because all of this is talk if we're not different, right? If we're not getting to a place where we're different, we're wasting time, and time is too precious of a commodity to waste.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's interesting too. I think that we're just in this weird time in history, right? We got a global pandemic. We got riots in the streets. We've got, we've got economic calamities, right? I mean, I just think that hope is delicate. It's powerful, but it's delicate. And I think that there has to be, in order to navigate where we are with our families, I'm thinking about my own family, my youngest, who, the state of the world has her just stressed out, and I think that is a delicate thing. Like I have to make sure that that's a conversation I'm having on a constant basis, that, hey, we're going to be okay. This is what we're going to do to get better. Mike, I have to repeat this to my youngest constantly,
No, but as dads, we should be, right? So in my world right now, we're trying to be dealers of hope.
Right.
Right. That's like part of the job description. And I think as dads and as husbands, assume the responsibility of dealing hope to everyone that you come in contact with. That is our charge, right? I talk about that mastering the intersection all the time. I want to put people on a different trajectory. When they run into me, wherever they run into me, I want them to be going higher, right? Yeah. I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm making it harder for them to be who they are, myself or my kids, my family included, right? But the reason why I ask, what are we afraid of? Because it's like that Marianne Williamson quote, right? That Nelson Mandela quoted in his inaugural address. Like, it is not darkness that we fear, it's our light.
Right.
It's the idea that we can be brilliant. It's the idea that we can write a book, right? Yeah. And those are the things that freak us out. When we take upon ourselves that we are children of God and that we have unlimited capabilities and capacities and potential, we actually give the green light to everyone around us to do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, what am I accepting, or what have I accepted that I should push away from or push back from?
Yeah.
Well, Dave, let me ask you this. What are you afraid of these days?
Well, yeah, I'm afraid of missing a prompting. I'm afraid of not being worthy to bless my kids and my wife. I'm afraid of being average. I've had that one for a long time. I don't want to be average. I don't want to be an average dad. I don't want to be an average husband. I don't want to be an average anything. And that's a hard one. But I don't want that.
That is the spirit of this show.
Absolutely.
That is what drives me. I know that is what drives Tyler. That's what drove us to do this, and that's what drives us to have conversations with guys like you. And I think that it's our job to help everybody have that same fear.
So let me ask the flip side of that question, Dave, is what gives you hope these days?
The hope is in eternity. I mean, the hope when my dad is, down on the canvas and knocked down is that what I believe is true. And that if I get to talk to him again, I mean, he had 2 strokes. So the first one happened about 3 weeks ago. The second one happened last Friday. The first one happened when he was at my house. And I'm driving 95 miles an hour to get him to the hospital with my mom. I'm not sure if he's going to make it there. I get to the hospital, and they don't even let me in. I drop him off at the door. And I go back to the car, and I have to think, he's either going to get better or I'm not going to see him again. And right now, I figure out, what do I believe? And I think it's only in the tough moments that we really figure out, what do we believe? Am I going to have more faith, or am I going to doubt? What do I believe?
I love that. I think it's important that, I mean, I feel like that's like a self-evaluation, right? That we probably need to be taking part of on a fairly consistent basis, is asking ourselves, what do we believe, and why do we believe what we believe? Because I think, right, sometimes, Mike, and you talked about this, I think a couple episodes ago, about check boxes and just going through the motions and completing things because that's culturally maybe what we think has to be done. But the reality is it's more about, asking ourselves, why am I doing that? What reason do I find myself in the scriptures? Why am I putting
back to Dave's situation, human nature is, my dad's on the mat, right? And I need God right now.
Yeah.
So God, help my dad and I'll believe in you.
Yeah.
But you need to have faith that he takes your dad. Right? And that's a totally different question. That's like David Ray Bednar. Do you have the faith not to be healed?
Yeah, that's that. But if not,
right.
But if not, God, I want my dad. I want my dad to live. I want to talk to him again. I want to see him again. But if not, can you help me through? Yeah. But if not, can you help me still believe? But if not, man, that's heavy.
Yeah. Those are questions of the soul that really stir it up when we get down to, what do we believe? Because we're not talking about church and tie and a suit and everybody looking nice walking into the church building on a Sunday, right? You're up against it. And right then, right there, you need to know that there's more to this life than this life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough, man.
Hey, I'm dying to know something. I got to ask you, because you work for a bank, for Pete's sake, and the show's called Richest Men in Town. You know, like when you get an invitation to be on a podcast called Richest Men in Town, and we end up talking to you about what this thing really is about, what goes through your mind?
I serve the people. so I mean, I know what this podcast is about, and this podcast has nothing to do with money. So
No, it doesn't.
you know, and the work that I do at the bank really has nothing to do with money. The only reason I accepted the job was because I have a clear mission that I want to preserve family relationships and perpetuate their legacies. And
I gotta stop you right there.
Yeah.
How did that get so clear? Because there's a lot of people that can't clearly articulate what you just told me your life, your professional life and purpose is about.
So it happened a long time ago. When I was in grad school, I had two families I was really close to. One had a construction company. The other one had a specialty auto company. And the construction company was a family business. And the guy was my young men's president. He was my hero. Keith Riley is his name. And his family. I just, you know, I attributed the success of that family, their happiness together, their work ethic, their closeness to the family business. So I thought, family business, wow, that's pretty interesting. Then the other family, you know, on the flip side had a tragedy. You know, someone passed away. They weren't clear on what their expectations were for the ownership transition, and it decimated their family. It broke family relationships. And I was just finishing my grad school, and I thought, you know what? If I could do that for a living and keep a family from their relationships being broken and maybe possibly perpetuate a business, man, that'd be worthwhile. So that's where it started, one family at a time.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Hey, what's next? I mean, you're holding a couple books in your hand, right? What's next for Dave Specht?
It's a good question. You know, I don't know. I'm just one day at a time at this point.
Well, we'll definitely include the titles of your books in some Amazon links in the show notes. You know the program, and you're a fan of the podcast, and
Absolutely,
we appreciate your support from the beginning. And the show's called The Richest Men in Town. So we always wrap things up. It has been an amazing almost 2 hours, Dave Specht, as we sat here together. What does it mean to you to be the richest man in town?
Wow. You know, in the end, I would love for all of my kids to be believers and to want to be together forever. I want them to make covenants. I want them to keep their promises. That's what it means. That's what it means. I mean, for me, the richest man in town means, you know, we're in ambitious pursuit of things, not material things, but our goals, our dreams. You know, if I'm in ambitious pursuit, I'm happy. And man, to be the richest man in town means, okay, I said it earlier, but to have a wife that's loyal to me, that loves me unconditionally, that is willing to forgive me over and over again, that makes me the richest man in town.
I love it. I think you know, the past nearly 2 hours that we've been on the line together, I just I can feel your passion for life. I can feel your passion for your kids, and I'm just grateful to have spent some time and got to know you, Dave, and I hope we can do it again. And you know, I was thinking as you were talking, I'm like, man, I just would love to have a moment where, Mike, where we have every one of our guests in the same room together. I just think, man, there's so many common threads and so many good people trying to get to the right place. And I think you're certainly one of them. And I would flag you down at any moment for some direction. I tell you that right now.
The beautiful thing is you didn't know this guy.
Yeah.
Right. And like, I believe there are no accidents. I was supposed to be in Uruguay. Dave, you were supposed to be in Uruguay, and we were supposed to meet, and we were supposed to have this impression that would endure. Right. And here we are now.
Took you 20 years to call me, but we'll just,
Mike's a slow study.
Freeman.
Slow study. I don't know.
Here we are now, and I wouldn't change one thing about who I am. Right? I wouldn't change the people in my life. I wouldn't change the experiences in my life. I wouldn't change the lumps I've taken from life.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And all of these things are to help us help others. Mm-hmm. That's my purpose, Tyler. I've told you before, it is get up and help as many people as I can in all the ways that I can, as long as I ever can. And Dave, you have poured into that purpose for me. I love you like a brother. I'm
you too, brother.
So proud of the things that you are doing with your life and with your family. And we're definitely going to be circling this thing back and bringing you back to the program. So
thanks, man.
Thank you for your time tonight.
There's no bigger fan. I'm your biggest fanboy here. So even though I've been on the show now,
Dave,
I'm the biggest promoter of the show.
Look, I've said it once, but I'll say it again. I just appreciate you. I feel like I am richer tonight for my conversation with you, and for that I'll be eternally grateful.
Thanks, Tyler. It was a great feeling being with you guys on the show tonight.
Yeah, my wife might have some words with your wife when she finds out I'm taking homeless guys to dinner.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous.
I'm prayerfully taking homeless guys to dinner.
There you go.
Dave, it's been a blast. We will absolutely do this again. We appreciate you, and tell your family thank you for letting you steal away for a few hours with us.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, be good, man.
Better.
Be
all
good,
right, man.
Dave.
Take care.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.